Hi, I'm Tricia Aurand, and I am one of the co-authors of Taking Flight, the Nadine Ramsey story. And I am so excited to share a section of the book with you today, along with my co-author, Raquel Ramsey, who I know is making a video of her own to share with you. The part that I'm going to read is from the section where Nadine is serving her country by flying as one of the women Air Force service pilots during World War II. So she's recently been transferred to Long Beach Army Airfield. And this is part 4, which we call WASP at War. On September 8, 1944, the DC-3's engines roared in Nadine's ears as it banked slowly, turning one glossy silver wing over the gunmetal gray Pacific. As a passenger this time, she was free to enjoy the scenery. Grinning, she pressed her cheek to the window glass. The sun was sinking into a vast mercury sea, throwing dusky pink rays onto Los Angeles' high-rises and the jagged shapes of mountains to the north. As Signal Hill, crested by its forest of oil derricks, came into view, a necklace of lights appeared along the harbor. A thrill ran along Nadine's spine as the plane pointed its nose toward a crosshatch of runways she recognized instantly as Long Beach Army Airfield. The plane taxied to a stop, and Nadine climbed into the aisle. Stretching her stiff back, she began collecting her things. A friendly voice broke in, and she turned to see an older man with graying whiskers gazing at her smart Santiago blue uniform. "You're one of them wasps, huh?" he asked, nodding at the highly polished wings pinned over her heart. "Do you fly the big ones?" Nadine was glad his expression was kind. The passenger she'd had to bump to get on this flight hadn't been so pleased. "Sometimes," she replied, grinning. Despite her exhaustion, Nadine climbed off the DC-3 with a new wave of energy. She took a deep breath of fresh, ocean-scented air. On the West Coast, she was, at least geographically, closer to Ed. Nadine thought about her brother as she made her way to the terminal building. She imagined him alive, marching through a labyrinth of tropical jungle, pressing his way forward through the tangle of vines and darkness, surviving, fighting. This past year in Nadine's life had felt no less confusing. Different planes every day, different cities every night, fallen friends, public insults. A war is a war, she thought, no matter where you're fighting it. Weaving briskly between buildings in the twilight on her way to the 6th Ferrying Group office, Nadine could hear the roar of a twin-engine pursuit aircraft coming in for a landing. She paused to look up as a P-38 landed on the airfield runway. She was impressed. The landing was textbook perfect. Nadine continued gazing as the beautiful twin-tailed Lockheed Lightning taxied to a stop, and a lean, athletic-looking young woman in a WASP uniform climbed out of the cockpit, removing her headphones and shaking out dark blonde curls. She smiled to herself. She was in the right place. Moments later, she set her bag down beside a door labeled WASP Squadron Operations and took a deep breath. She knocked. A low, authoritative voice called, "Come in." Nadine entered. The big room was a blur of warm light, flight suits on a rack, and cozy couches and armchairs, all dominated by an enormous U.S. map covering the back wall. A slender, black-haired young woman was working on a complicated chart that seemed to track the progress of the wasps under her command. She immediately stood up and came forward to Nadine, her hand extended. Nadine's instant impression was one of poise. This was B.J. Erickson, who was running the female ferrying division of the most important base in the country. At 24, she was one of the youngest WASP commanding officers. Just a bit taller than Nadine, she stood erect, looking steady and serious. "Glad to have you," she said, responding to Nadine's introduction. Then she cocked her head, indicating the runway where the Lightning had just landed. Her chocolate eyes twinkled. "How'd you like to fly a P-38? So this has been a section of Taking Flight, the Nadine Ramsey story. If you are interested in buying a book, they are available on Amazon.com and also on the university website for the University Press of Kansas, which is at www.kansaspress.ku.edu.